Now as we go on to Chapter 5, Section 5, what we're going to be doing is factoring trinomials. And a trinomial, you recall, is 3 terms. And step 1, there's a couple of things going on here, is to be sure that within a trinomial there are no common factors. If there are common factors, you take them out. But in this case, there isn't. And even before that, you check to see that your trinomial is in what we call standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. And this is in this form, where the a is a 1, the b is an 11, and the c is 24. So what are we doing here? Well, you recall we got there by multiplying 2 binomials. So in a sense, what we're doing here is undoing the FOIL. The FOIL was a pattern of multiplying these, then these, then these, and then this. And we ended up with that. Now we keep looking for little techniques. And one that I ran across, sort of something like this, where you make a big X. And we'll get to that in a moment, but how do we get that first term? We multiply this by this to get an x squared. So what do we put into our parentheses? Well, here, an x and an x. And then what we did to get our last term, we multiplied this by this to get that, but then keeping in mind that this also, when we multiplied these two and these two, added up to that 11. So, what do we start thinking about? Well, we want to think about factors then of 24 that add up to 11. And mentally you start going through them. 1 times 24, that doesn't do it. 2 times 12, that doesn't do it. 3 times 8, 3 times 8 is 24, and it adds up to 11. So what I suggest you do is you go like 8 times 3. This is going to be 24 if they're multiplied. But if you take the 8 and the 3 and add them up, it's 11. And that's exactly what we want. So our factors are going to be 8 and 3. And you could put those in different positions. That would be okay. And our signs are going to be plus. So then what we do is we check by foiling. Multiply these two, gives you that. The outers are 3, the inners are 8, adds up to 11, and then the last, when you multiply, are 24. So we're checking by the FOIL. Okay, step 1, is it in standard form? Yes. Are there any common factors that we could factor out? No. So the next step is to put 2 sets of parentheses where we're going to try to get binomial factors. And again, we could use this technique. So we know that here, the only thing we can have is x times x. And now we go 45. Now remember, this is a negative 45. And this is a negative 4. In order to multiply our last terms to get a negative, 1 needs to be positive and 1 needs to be negative. So we're looking for a difference here that adds up to 4. a negative 4. So our factors of 45 would be like 1 times 45, that doesn't do it. We can go 3 times 15, that doesn't do it. 9 times 5, 9 times 5, the difference of it is 4. So we're going to have a 9 times 5 and a 9 times 5. Now, we want our sum of this. This is going to be a negative 45, but we want our sum of this to equal a negative 4. So the 9 needs to be negative, and the 5 is positive. So to get our negative 45, our 9 needs to be negative. So we'll put our 9 there, and we put our 5 there. And again, you check it by FOIL. First, x squared. Outers, a negative 9. Inners, a positive 5. That adds up to a negative 4x. And then our last, a negative 45. So that works out very well. And again, by checking it by foiling, you are reviewing an important skill and ensuring that you're going to get the right answer. So in number 5, is this expression in standard form? Yes. Is there a common factor in this expression? And the answer is yes. There's a factor of 2. So we've taken out the common factor of 2. I now have a trinomial in standard form with no common factor. So I need the 2. I'm going to put 2 sets of parentheses. So again, let's review the steps. Standard form, factor out the greatest common factor, put 2 sets of parentheses. Now we look at our first term. There are no other possibilities, so an x and an x goes there. Now we look at our 10. Our 10 is positive, but our middle term is negative. The only way that can happen is if both of these signs are negative. So, what are the factors of 10 that add up to 11? Well, that's kind of easy. That's going to be 10 times 1 and 10 times 1. 10 times 1 equals 10, and I needed both to be negative to get a positive 10, and now this adds up to a negative 11. And that's what we have. So negative 10, negative 1. Could we have reversed these? Yes. It's okay that way as well. And you FOIL to check and it does. All right, this next one's a little different because now we've introduced another variable. Standard form, so 2 parentheses. And notice we're going to need an x there, but we're also going to need a y there and a y there. And now we have 28. So what are the factors of 28? Well, 1 times 28, 2 times 14, and we have 4 times 7. That looks like the one we want because that adds up to 11. So 4 times 7, a 4 and a 7. 4 times 7 is 28, and it adds up to an 11. So that's our solution. We're going to put a plus 4 and a plus 8. No, a plus 7. Let's get that right. Sorry about that. Okay, so you check it. X times x is x squared. Outers are 7x. Inners are 4x. Add up to 11. And then the product for our last term, and don't forget the y's, 28y squared.